Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our Perspectives on Performance Partnerships panel today, which features mass media publishers who are some of the most sought after partners within brands' affiliate programs. Their ability to produce quality content and deliver it to large and highly engaged audiences makes them very attractive affiliate partners for many brands. Today, you'll be hearing from experts at BuzzFeed, Forbes, Vox Media, Wirecutter, and Ziff Davis about how brands can and really should be partnering with mass media sites through the affiliate channel. First, just a few housekeeping items. I do have a few specific questions that I'll be asking of each panelist, but we will also be taking questions at the end if time allows, which you can put through the chat, which is on the bottom of your Zoom screen. And also, today's conversation will be recorded and sent to attendees via email after the panel. So to kick things off, we'll start with intros. My name is Michelle Morgan, and I'm moderating today's panel. I'm the Director of Publisher Development at Acceleration Partners, where I oversee a team who's responsible for supporting the growth of our clients by creating and growing partnerships with key publishers, such as the one we have on our panel today. Acceleration Partners, or AP, if you aren't familiar, is the premier global partner marketing agency. We manage close to 200 affiliate programs for brands across 36 countries, and our team collectively speaks 22 languages. With our experience and our track record, we set the standard for how brands efficiently grow and refine their partnerships anywhere in the world. And I will now turn it over to Neela. Neela, welcome, and thank you for joining the panel today. Can you give the audience a background about yourself and what you do at BuzzFeed?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Neela Ali. I'm the SVP of Commerce at BuzzFeed. I also oversee our retail and direct-to-consumer advertising business. Commerce is another word for our affiliate business. And then everything on the advertising side is your kind of traditional media products like direct sold advertising, custom content, and all of that. So very excited to chat with everyone today.
Thank you. Emily, turn it over to you.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Emily Jackson. I'm the VP of e-commerce at Forbes, where I oversee our growing commerce business, which is currently 3 products. We have our affiliate business, which is Forbes Shopping, our coupon business, and then our storefronts. Previous to Forbes, I was at Condé Nast, where I launched and ran their affiliate program. And before that, I was on the vendor side at Skimlinks, helping publishers scale their commerce business.
Thank you. Jessica, over to you.
Sure. And thanks for having me. And I just want to say it's so nice to see the panelists in person, or I guess not in person, but see them. Anyway, it's been a while since we've gotten together and chatted. I'm Jessica Spear. I'm the Group VP for Strategic Growth at Ziff Media Group. Related to affiliate, I do have a team that works with the merchants and networks to create performance marketing partnerships across our portfolio. ZMG is a global portfolio of brands, including shopping brands now such as Retail Me Not, Offers.com, 3 Black Friday sites, as well as publishing or mass media brands, more of our editorial sites such as PC Mag, Ask Men, and Mashable. Been at Ziff, a total, I think it's 7 years. There was an 18-month period at Wirecutter. But really been sort of that bookending at Ziff.
Thank you. Yeah, time's just blurring together, I think, especially in our industry. Thank you, Jessica. Camilla, how about you?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. So I'm Camilla Cho. I'm the SVP of e-commerce for Vox Media. In that role, I oversee all e-commerce across our portfolio of brands, focusing on growing our e-commerce business, which is mainly affiliate revenue for now. Basically, in my role, I'm applying best practices and optimization tactics, providing insights into data and trends to editorial teams, striking affiliate deals and affiliate relationships directly with brands and networks, and executing on audience development and marketing strategies. Main focus is on the Strategist, which is the brand that is predominantly focused on shopping. And it's a brand that I'm very proud to have helped started and founded over at New York Magazine, part of New York Media, which was acquired by Vox Media about a little over a year ago. The Strategist also does have a UK version, still in its infancy and growing. This year, we're very much also focused on growing e-commerce on The Verge, which is an editorial brand that has its roots in product reviews. So naturally, there's a huge audience there that has a high level of interest in tech products. Also supporting e-commerce on The Cut, Vulture, Eater, and Polygon.
Thank you. And then last but certainly not least, Leilani.
Hi there, I'm Leilani Hahn. I head up business development and partnerships at Wirecutter. Wirecutter is the product review and recommendation subsidiary of the New York Times. And in my role, I'm responsible for driving strategy for the affiliate revenue, licensing and programmatic and other strategic partnerships, and also help to lead cross-functional success and things like tentpole events and digital projects with other Wirecutter leaders. And I've been at Wirecutter for about 3 years. And prior to that, I spent 5.5 years on the network side, actually at CJ Affiliate, working with both advertisers and publishers.
Thank you. So let's get into it. And really the reason I think why attendees are here is because they're so interested in your business models, and mass media is such a hot topic. When at AP, when we launch new clients and work with our existing clients, that's one of the most frequently asked about vertical, and brands want to know how they can work with you and how they can do it effectively. So I'd love to hear from each of you about how brands currently work with your company. And, if you, remembering that we do have global clients on the call who aren't just in the US. So if you have any opportunities for brands to work with you outside of just the US market, it'd be really helpful for them to hear how they can do so. So Neela, how about I'll start with you?
Yeah, that sounds great. So our commerce business specifically is powered by BuzzFeed Shopping, the vertical that is all things shopping content. We have an editorial team who's creating content around best product reviews, best products from certain retailers or brands. A lot of their process is very kind of editorially driven and at their own discretion. But having run the business for 4 years, about 3 years ago, we started recognizing that there was this kind of opportunity for us to diversify away from just writing about partners like Amazon. And we definitely saw appetite and traction with other partners, be it big box retailers or even kind of smaller direct-to-consumer brands. So we started introducing new ways for brands to engage with us and effectively guarantee or secure guaranteed coverage against our shopping audience. So what we have done is we partner very closely with the affiliate networks, with agencies like Acceleration Partners, and we've effectively created these paid partnership models where brands can approach us, kind of pitch where they see opportunity for our editorial team to feature their product and how to increase the amount of coverage they're currently getting within content. Everything we do is vetted by our editorial team, and ultimately anything that we move forward with is at their discretion. The other kind of way to engage with us is, given we do have this editorial business where the writers are writing about brands and products on their own, when we see really strong traction with certain partners, we found a lot of success in driving more qualified traffic to that content. So brands can reach out to us when they do have editorial coverage to see how we can kind of amplify the coverage that they've already seen. Beyond that, a lot of partners, once they kind of get that initial signal that there's strong traction with their audience, will kind of evolve the partnership to working with us from an advertising perspective or work on custom content that's inspired by the best practices that we're seeing on the shopping editorial side. So there's many ways to engage with us. We definitely have our US business, but we also operate in 6 markets. I might be overstating that, but we definitely are doubling down on our global efforts. So I can list them out really quickly for those that are on the call. But we have an operation in Canada, in the UK, in Mexico, in India, and Japan as well. So that is actually 5, but we absolutely are looking for ways to grow in those markets and are eager to partner with partners in each. So that is it.
Great, thank you. So Emily, same question for you. How do and how can brands work with Forbes?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Forbes Shopping, which, as I mentioned in my intro, is kind of our affiliate content arm of the business. And Forbes Shopping has really only been really going properly for a year. It's probably been going for about 3, but it hasn't really had a dedicated team until the past year. And so we've really been focused over this past year in terms of building up our editorial team and really making sure that kind of quality recommendations and reviews are at the core of what we do. And so, now we're actually starting to think, how can we start to work with retailers in better ways? And I think, in comparison to some of the other brands on this call, you have some of the pioneers in the affiliate industry right here. Forbes is probably a little bit further behind, just in terms of maturity. So like I said, really working on the foundation of the business, but now we're starting to get into the fun stuff. So the way that we kind of think about working with retailers is kind of in two separate ways. There's kind of this passive way where, you know, potentially you're working with us directly via a network. You know, we're letting you know where you can, you know, tell us where you have promotions or product launches, essentially getting that information in front of our editors. And similar to BuzzFeed and a lot of the other publishers on this call, we really try and separate those two areas of the business. So our editorial team, you know, they are fully in charge of everything that they write about. We don't tell them what products to choose. We don't tell them what categories to write about. You know, we try and do all of the monetization on the back end. So it's about getting information in front of them when you have something to say. On the other side of that, we do have kind of this active way of working with us, which is a little bit more in depth, where we're asking, you know, retailers and talking to them a little bit more about what is it that they're trying to achieve. You know, are they really focused on a specific sale that is coming up? Do they have a product launch that they would really love to be, you know, to be featured? Can we get it in front of editors? Is it new customers they're really after? Is it average order value? Do they really love the coverage that we've done, but they want to try and access a different audience? Or do they love the fact that we featured their product, but they would prefer that we link directly to them versus Amazon or Walmart or somewhere else? And so we try and take those conversations super holistically and say, okay, well, based on your needs, like here are the offerings that we have for you. You know, we do have a paid program offering now where we can kind of leverage our, you know, high search intent content, and retailers can pay to be included in that, or in our super loyal and engaged newsletter. Or it's just about making sure that we have the right information to get in front of our editorial team. So as that starts to ramp up, I think there'll be more coming down the pipeline. But right now, there are kind of these two buckets, active and passive, that you can be working with Forbes Shopping right now.
Thanks, Emily. And Jessica, I'll turn it over to you, an overview for how brands can work with your company. I know you have a plethora of sites, so.
Right.
Go
We
for
have
it.
a large portfolio, but I want to take a step back because I think for us, first, we look at our customer primarily is, you know, our first customer is our audience, right? So we are looking at what we are defining now as the primed consumer. And that primed consumer is someone who could be anywhere from an enthusiast, like they're in discovery mode in terms of shopping. They want to shop, but maybe they don't exactly know what they're looking for, but they're open to seeing products and services, to an in-market consumer who's literally raised their hand in search and looked for best Wi-Fi router, best laptop computer, best VPN, something like that. We run, you know, we look at that whole spectrum of a consumer first. And then we break it down and serve that consumer through editorial expertise and service journalism combined with shopping insight. And that's how we bring the entire strength of the Ziff Media Group portfolio together. So I think first and foremost, we need to make sure that whatever merchant we're talking to has some sort of fit with our brands and our audience. Is what they're selling going to resonate with our user? Because whatever, you know, if it doesn't resonate, then we're not going to get the kind of performance that we're looking for. On the editorial site, we have a lot of what we would call like native integration. So editorial and business are separated. It's church and state. Our editorial team on PC Mag, those are lab tested product reviews, whether they are done now in COVID, sort of in a sort of weird lab space in the office where people have permission to go, or we've got a woman down in Florida who has reviewed every connected exercise device and like tricked out her basement to a home gym. Those are done independent of business. The reviews are published, and then my team works at the back end, similar to what Emily was describing, to monetize those primarily through traditional affiliate performance business models, right? So, and we work again with all of the networks, all of the agencies in order to do that. We also have opportunities where perhaps a brand may not be getting organic coverage, or the product may not be getting organic coverage, but we know that the brand, the product resonates with this primed consumer. Then we can work with the brand on more branded content experiences on our sites like Mashable. We can do deal posts across the portfolio. We have push marketing efforts with email across, again, our entire portfolio. But if we take us, again, if we look at this, we try to look at this very holistically, which is one of, I think, the benefits of working with a mass media partnership, where you can take sort of an upper down to lower funnel approach to performance, and really drive value for the partner. So this is a long way of saying, I guess, how we work with partners, but I just want to make sure that people understand that it's not just here's some money, write a review. We don't do that. And it all goes back to the audience that the publisher is serving. And also an understanding of exactly what the KPIs are for that particular partner and how we can drive value, again, for our audience as well as the partnership, the merchant.
That's great. Thanks so much. Mila, how about you?
Hi. A lot of similarities with what Emily and Jessica and some of what Neela has already said. I think there's obviously a lot of similarities in terms of how kind of the more traditional affiliate links work in editorial articles. Our team works with hundreds of brands with a focus on the brands that we link to most frequently, obviously. So those are the ones where we foster a more strategic relationship. We talk to them on a very regular basis. We have QBRs or monthly reviews. We've actually found that we prefer working directly with brands, and we kind of like that communication channel to be open and know who's who on the other side. As mentioned before by the other panelists, we're very editorially driven. We rarely entertain any sort of pitches that are pay for play. We have maintained on the Strategist since it launched over 4 years ago. There's never been a piece of paid content or sponsored content or branded content on the site. So we try to keep it as pure as possible. We do engage in branded content and sponsored content on some of our other sites like The Cut, and those perform really well. So a lot of the data around purchase behavior, intent, patterns, all of that we get a ton of that data from Strategist, because that's where millions and millions of page views are generated every single day. We use a lot of those insights to go back to the brands and propose different ways to work and activate on other channels where they could find similar audiences. Because we have a wide network, especially around the New York media brands, there's a lot of overlap. There's definitely people that are starting at nymag.com and are gonna read an article on The Cut, but also read something on The Strategist and sometimes pop over to Grub Street or whatever it may be. So we work with brands that way. More tactically, we're talking to them about helping to, optimize driving traffic, conversions, awareness, whatever their goals are. We share relevant info and data and trends with them, which I think has been interesting lately. There's been much more of a louder demand for transparency and data directly from the brands, and they just are hungry for more and more data in terms of what kind of trends are we seeing, what our users prefer, how they're performing compared to some of their competitors and things like that. We're driving them quality traffic because most oftentimes than not, they're in evergreen articles that get updated. And so those go out via our sites, our social accounts, email newsletter, and sometimes even in paid campaigns as well. We're receiving advance notice and info from brands on like upcoming sales and promotions, events, new drops and collaborations. Those kind of information are very welcome, and we try to hop on those as soon as possible. We'll also work with select brands from time to time on securing exclusive discount codes and sneak peeks. Sometimes that's for our email subscribers or select audiences. One big push we've had in the recent right now that's actually kind of ongoing. We're preparing for an upcoming Strategist 2-day sale that's coming up actually next Thursday and Friday. And that was where we actively went out to dozens of brands from a wish list, if you will, of our editors' favorite products that have been previously covered on the site, combined with what readers have already indicated an interest in. So products that have garnered a lot of clicks and conversions. So we've curated that down to about 50 select products that we'll be promoting that are running with the best discount ever, or at least the best discount of the year so far. Some brands are, those that have never given discounts before. So we are negotiating for those types of exclusive discounts for our readers. And those will get obviously a lot of promotion, since we're going to be promoting that event across all of our sites and in various different marketing campaigns outside of our sites as well.
Thanks, Camilla. And Leilani.
Sure. So at Wirecutter, I mean, I think first and foremost, all of us do have a separation between business and edit, but I would say, having worked with a lot of these publishers in my past when I was working at the network, I think Wirecutter probably has the most stringent separation. And so I think it's important to mention that that is like the very first prerequisite to working with Wirecutter, at least on the business side, is you have to be carrying a product or service that we recommend. Separately, I saw one of the questions in the chat. I would say the best way to get in front of Wirecutter in terms of having your product or service considered is, because we do stay so separate, we stay completely out of the process. Sometimes, brands will ask us if we can connect them with our editorial staff, or if we could accept products for review on their behalf. And we don't do any of that because we stay out of it. I think the best thing that you could do is to work with your PR team to have them pitch your product directly to the person that is writing for that specific vertical. Once a brand does, become picked as a Wirecutter pick, I think it all starts with a conversation. I think the most important thing to remember, I think just as many others have said on this call already, is that we are focused on the reader first. And for us, it's very much about our relationship with them and helping to meet their needs. And so I think from there, I think that we need to, we want to help to enhance the reader experience once we send them off of Wirecutter. So obviously, when it comes to affiliate, things like strong rates and like what promos you're running are important. Obviously, things like what tools are you going to be providing to help us be successful, like obvious things like deep linking and feeds. But, ultimately, we're looking at what's going to be driving the best shopping experience. So there's all those factors that we look at when considering whether or not we're going to partner with you. So, and that has much more so to do with the experience, such as like whether or not you have really competitive price and fast and free shipping. And customer service is actually a really big piece of it too. We actually go to the full customer experience end to end when we're even considering whether or not like a partnership even makes sense to have a conversation about. And then once that happens, it then, and we have, determined at least initially that this could be a good fit, and that in terms of like the monetization, it would be a value add for Wirecutter. That's where we start to take a look at actually, what are actually the brand's goals relative to ours. I think it's really important for us to have like a collaborative and equitable partnership. And obviously, like when we're initially having conversations, we'll hear like often from brands like, oh, we're looking for this sort of a ROAS or what have you. But getting that additional context around like what's really driving those KPIs and how that actually rolls up into like the bigger picture in terms of the company's goals and priorities actually really helps us to have a better understanding so that we can actually align where our goals can help fit together. And so the partnerships that we work with where we've had like the longest standing relationships and like the most success, like really understand that it's very much a two-way street and being able to like be collaborative together. And on the Wirecutter side, once we have all that information, we'll not only take a look at where you have a fit with the products that we recommend, but how can we do more to really enhance the visibility on Wirecutter? How can we ensure that we're taking what's in that product review, but make sure that you're also merchandising the other pieces that also speak to those picks, really working with our audience development team to bring more visibility to those pieces where you have the share of voice, and then collaborating with our deals team to bring, their recommended prices to the product, these great products that you already recommend. We do a really great job of really honing in on what people are looking for at specific times and putting it in front of them. And so we do have various levers of success, but it all comes back to the reader service aspect and the experience we're going to provide based on a Wirecutter pick.
Thank you. So I'm hearing a lot of themes here. Collaboration are key, having open communication between the brand or the network or the agency that's working with the brand and each of you as a publisher. Sharing KPIs, which aren't just within the affiliate channel, but across the entire brand's organization to see how you can potentially help them hit those and that your audiences come first. And I know we also talked a bit about the separation between editorial and business, which I think can often be confusing for brands, or at least is a question that we get from prospective clients or current clients. How do I optimize with these partners? How do I get in with them? What if I have a high commission rate, or is it a flat fee that I need to pay? So I think we've talked a bit about this so far, but for the next question, I'd love to hear from each of you about the most important thing that you want a brand to know about working with you as a performance partner, so through the affiliate channel. Neela, do you want to kick us off again?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely want to echo everyone's sentiment that the editorial team ultimately is like the final decision maker as to what brands are or not featured in content. That being said, I'm a big believer that different products are great for different people. I think it's, I think just like in the universe of the digital space, there's so many emerging brands and so many emerging products that are great, that are maybe smaller and don't have kind of enough exposure to warrant the amount of reviews a product might have, say on Amazon. So we definitely try to take an approach of like giving every brand a fair shot. And ideally the editorial team has experience with the product that they can speak to, and that would then lend to them featuring a brand in product and content or exploring potential partnership opportunities. Or again, it's a brand that has been around for a long time and has a lot of user reviews and it has been vetted. And that's something that we can leverage in order to kind of make our editorial decisions. But in terms of how to engage with us, I would say higher commission rates are valuable in that once coverage is secured, a higher rate allows us to lean into that partnership in a bigger way. We kind of think of everything through the lens of like opportunity cost to some extent. It's like there's only so much content we can distribute on Facebook. There's only so much content we can distribute on Instagram or through a newsletter until that content starts to kind of cannibalize each other. So our ultimate priority is one, optimizing for the best user experience and optimizing towards the content that has the highest conversion. But then at the end of the day, we are looking to kind of maximize our affiliate business. And that's where the commissions come into place or into play. So I'd say commission more impacts our distribution strategy and our ability to lean into the coverage that you're receiving versus being a reason why the editorial team would or would not feature a product, because that is where we're servicing our audience, not necessarily servicing higher commission rates. But then beyond that, when reaching out to brands for the first time, at least I can speak for BuzzFeed, I think just giving as much context as possible at the onset of like, has BuzzFeed featured your brand in the past? Did you see really successful traffic coming in from that post or high conversions that gave signal that there's that your product is resonating in a really strong way with the BuzzFeed audience? Do you have really high reviews? Have you recently gotten a lot of press from other brands that maybe would be worth us kind of like taking into account and potentially reviewing the product ourselves, or again, relying on the reviews that currently exist on your site? So I think just providing as much context as possible as to why you think your brand is a strong fit for BuzzFeed helps kind of streamline that process. And then I would say if like us at BuzzFeed decide not to move forward, it doesn't necessarily mean that like you can't have an affiliate business. It might just mean that your product is not right for our audience or what we've typically seen performs well with our specific users. So I would definitely say like understand what your product is and who the target audience would be, and then find publishers who align with that. But then in your outreach, provide as much context that can help publisher teams make the right decision as to whether or not there's a potential partnership that is worth exploring.
Thank you. Same question for you, Emily. What's the most important thing a brand should know about working with you?
Yeah, I think, you know, so much of this is seeing the trends come out from other panelists, and I totally agree with Neela. I think there is a really good point to be made around kind of the editorial coverage and how that really is kind of the last stop and how we decide what gets covered. And the other thing that I want to add when we're talking about commission rate increases and, you know, whether they make a difference, for us, I think it's less about the distribution, in our current stage, but it is more about retailer destination. So right now there are so many products that are available across so many different retailers. We really try and optimize for EPC, earnings per click. So we're really taking into account commission rate and average order value and conversion rate. And so we're weighing up all of those metrics together. And so if you are able to give us a higher commission rate in order to route traffic to your, direct to your website or, to another retailer, that's something that we're going to take into account, because it means that the editorial team still have full coverage over the product recommendation and the product they're choosing. And, as long as there's not a massive price disparity or a really big difference in terms of, shipping fees or how long it's going to take, like that's where we can start to be more flexible about where we're routing that traffic. So I think that's another important thing to mention. And then the other thing that I'd say is just, especially when it comes to maybe more paid programs or flat fee scenarios, I think it's easy to forget sometimes that, our editorial teams, day in, day out, they are creating content that is meant to persuade and encourage people to buy a product that we are recommending. And so to have a little bit of trust in the process that kind of we understand our audience and we know what's going to, get them to the point of purchase. I think sometimes we work with retailers who want, oversight on copy, or they want a specific product featured, or, a specific image. And sometimes kind of giving us a little bit of space to be creative and understand, well, if it's going on, this platform, we're going to do something different than if it's going on site or if it's going on social, and kind of trusting that our team, from all of the data that they're seeing across the entire, platform, that they're going to know how to get this product shifted. So a little bit of trust in the process.
Thanks, Emily. Jessica, how about you?
So I agree, or a lot of what Neela and Emily say apply to us as well. One thing I did forget to say is that we are global, and we do reach about 1 billion people in the last 12 months in Canada, Australia, and the UK would be our owned and operated properties that are not US based. So just wanted to get that out of the way. I think for us, what's challenging, I think, for brands to understand is that we are a portfolio of sites, and each of these sites kind of operates in a little bit of a different way. By operate, I'm talking much more around user intent and how someone gets to us. So that's really important, I think, for brands to understand that sometimes the consumer is going to get to us purely through search. They're going to search for the best XYZ product. Sometimes they're going to come directly to the homepage. Sometimes they're going to come through social. So knowing where the user comes from and having an understanding is helpful in shaping the program and also their expectations. I think alignment on KPIs, goals, context, everything that Neela said, when a partner approaches us, they need to understand that, one, just because you're going to pay us a high rate doesn't mean, one, that we'll be able to write about the product, that it will resonate, that we'll be able to do anything with it as much as we want to. Sometimes we end up turning down business. I don't like to do that. My team doesn't like to do that, but that's just a fact of life, right? We're human beings. We only have a certain amount of time each day. We only have a certain number of deals that can be posted on any of our shopping sites, a certain number of spots in email, and a certain number of reviews that can be written, or branded content pieces that can be crafted. And so everything has to work together. So the more context that comes across, a transparency in terms of KPIs and goals, is it only sales? Is it new users? Is it clicks to the store website? All of that context is important. And the other thing I'll say, because this is really more about mass media and editorial, is that while content, and our content particularly, is quite performant, and I know it is on Wirecutter and Forbes and Strategist for sure. I've bought things off Strategist and Wirecutter and BuzzFeed. While we know that the content performs differently than coupon, deal, and loyalty. And so the metrics, the ROAS expectation needs to come sort of in line with what is reality. And I also think that we need to think about different models, and we work across all different models. I saw something popped up in the chat. We have some advertisers that are purely on performance, purely on CPA. We have some that are on CPC. We have some that are on a hybrid flat fee plus a CPA model. And some of that has to do with the programs that we've crafted. In the display branded area, there were massive budgets for branding on mass media sites. We're providing that kind of value, but pinned to a performance, really. So I think that having an understanding that there is some flexibility around budgeting, that it may not just be performance, that we need all of the KPIs and some transparency, and that some of these content programs are going to perform differently than a deal or coupon, really important, so that expectations are managed across the board. The last thing any of us want to do is burn an advertiser or have an advertiser come back and say, this didn't perform well. Why did you, we don't like to do that. We want everyone to feel good about the partnership and work on something that we can grow over the long haul.
Love that. Thanks, Jessica. And Camilla, how about you?
Yeah, so many good points raised so far. And I think a lot of that applies to Vox Media as well. I mean, I think at a very high level, as I think was said a little bit earlier, the relationships, the partnerships we really value are the ones that truly feel like a two-way partnership, and where we are sharing relevant information and KPIs and figuring out ways to collaborate together rather than just a one-way street of one person doing the pitching. And just talking through, like, what are you trying to get at this quarter or with this promotion? What are you guys looking for? As Jessica said, sometimes they're looking for pure clicks. Other times they're really focused around new customer acquisition. Other times they're just wanting the biggest basket size ever. And so to understand those types of metrics, I think are really helpful. I also really appreciate when brands come to us with pitches or proposals that's grounded in data. So for example, a retailer came to us pretty recently and said that sales of dresses on their website is up 20%. And by the way, we want to further incentivize sales in that category. We're going to offer you guys a higher rate just for that category. And so that's kind of a nice way to tell us, like, okay, why are you doing this? And why would it make sense for us to, maybe put a little bit more push around dresses from that retailer? It's like, all right, well, there is more consumer demand and they're grounding that in facts. And so that's very much appreciated by the team. That helps us to also just kind of package up the insights to the relevant editorial teams for them to consider. Not that they're going to take it always, that's not guaranteed, but that makes our recommendations and insights just also a lot more robust. Also, I often see when there is kind of an incentive for higher rates. For example, I'm sure all of us are on the Skimlinks distribution list, right? And so retailer XYZ, hey, we're offering 30% CPA for the next month. Well, then basically all sites are now going to be writing about the same thing, the same product, and you're going to be seeing basically the same content from various different publishers. Our editors have like zero interest in covering something everyone else is covering. It's like it's already out there. What more value are we adding by repeating that same bit of information? And so if you are going to offer custom rates, I would sometimes suggest that a premium rate at a publisher specific level might be much more appealing. And I realize maybe there's not enough scale there, but with some of our editorial folks, we feel that these like big mass pitches rarely seem to be effective. And then I'm just gonna be honest, like we don't really take too many inbound pitches. We have a email list. We probably get hundreds of emails a day, and that's a lot of volume to look through, but there's also just a lot of stuff that's not relevant at all to any of our sites. So we'll go to you most of the times, and we'll reach out when we want to work together. Every once in a while, some relevant stuff comes along, but the inbound pitches, I find that a lot of times those are not all that effective. And then the other thing I often see from the brands that we are working with is they will suggest headlines for articles. That's also something we don't really need help in. That's the job of the editorial team. That staff has that very well covered. So please don't suggest headlines to us. Once again, like grounded in data, grounded in trends, grounded in what you're actually seeing. That's probably the best way for us to run with things.
Thank you. And Leilani, over to you.
Yeah, sure. I'm smiling because a lot of these things that the other ladies are saying, it just really, really resonates with me. So I would only add on top of everything else that everyone has already said is, in terms of working with us as a performance partner is to, there's obviously going to be some certain KPIs that are going to matter to a content publisher. Those best practices are true, but I wouldn't make the assumption that those are the only things that we care about. So for example, it's not too uncommon for a brand to assume that that getting the highest rates and driving top line earnings are like the end all be all for us. And, certainly that's important, but it's not going to be the primary driver for what we're looking for in working with a partner. Again, everything is really coming down to the reader experience and delivering on that. So there's going to be certain instances in which, an opportunity might sound really good on paper, but we'll turn it down because, this retailer is struggling with inventory. They can't keep the things in stock, and they won't do any sort of a free shipping without a minimum threshold. Those are definitely barriers for our readers, especially when you consider the fact that we're a very product first focused publisher, not a merchant focused first publisher. And so what that means is, depending on who carries the product, we actually do have the ability to drive our readers to consider new brands for the first time. But you do have to lessen that barrier to entry, especially when you do have a ton of other mass retailers out there who are really like nailing it when it comes to overall customer service. And so yeah, we could have the potential to drive X amount of revenue or earnings with a brand, but if you can't keep things in stock, then that's not something that's going to lead to a good reader experience. There's even other situations in which we've had to turn down other opportunities, or we might, risk losing potential flat spend because all those things aren't adding up. So I would just say that that's the most important thing to keep in mind, is that without the trust of the readers, we wouldn't be able to scale to the level that we have. And it's those really important pieces that are really driving that, not just earning the highest rate possible.
Thanks, everyone.
Michelle, can I double click on what Leilani said? Because I do
course.
think we're all sort of talking about the importance of reader trust, and the importance of our ability as mass media publishers to make sure that we retain that reader trust with independent editorial and also driving someone to the right experience. And I think, what Leilani was talking about, things being out of stock, we definitely saw that during like last year at this time, when our production team was massively, trying to keep up with what was going on in terms of merchants running out of stock. And those that were able to keep product in stock ended up retaining or growing their share of voice. And I think that that's an important thing for some merchants to just understand in terms of experience, or if they were able to really fulfill on kind of click to curb. Those are shopping behaviors that have changed during the pandemic and that we think will continue. And having those experiences, if you are a big box retailer, for example, are really important and allow publishers potentially to help shift share, because that's going to improve our reader experience. And if the reader experience improves, it just helps to build more reader trust with the publishing brands.
Thanks, Jessica. It's all great information for this group to hear about. So for the last question on the agenda, I think we've talked about this a bit in going through the others, and I'll let, I guess, anyone take this one first, but what would you say is your biggest challenge in working with brands and or the biggest misconception about working with your companies?
I think from my perspective, the biggest issue, like right now, we're talking a lot about how effectively why we wouldn't work with brands. I think on the flip side, there's a lot of appetite, at least from BuzzFeed, to work with new brands to diversify our product assortment to really make sure that especially like D2C brands or small businesses receive exposure within our content. I think the challenge is expecting that the conversion of a small or D2C brand or a very product specific D2C brand would perform the same as a retailer, knowing that a retailer, once the user gets there, has a wide assortment to choose from. So just naturally the conversion rate will be higher. So I think the biggest blocker to the success of publishers working with the long tail of partners is this expectation around very high return on ad spend, kind of on the offset or onset of a partnership. So I think if partners could have a more holistic perspective around what does success look like. From my perspective, anytime I make a shopping decision, I don't want to say anytime, but I'd say like 95% of the time, I'm engaging in some sort of content to make that ultimate decision. Like I'm researching new trends, or I'm like checking reviews of a product that I might be interested in buying that I maybe saw on Instagram. And I think typically the learning I have is like, it's very rare that I like see a thing and impulsively buy it. There are instances where that happens, typically at a lower kind of price point, but the higher the price point, I'd say the longer the consideration period. So when partners are featuring your product, you're getting a ton of brand exposure and brand awareness, which ironically brands are willing to pay millions of dollars for through other channels. But then when it comes to affiliate, if you're partnering with a publisher, you're getting a ton of exposure, it's driving clicks, it's driving views, but that immediate conversion isn't there. Firstly, it's likely an attribution issue. There's probably more conversion that we're not getting credit for. But then beyond that, there's no kind of value ascribed to that brand awareness or just exposure within content that very likely will ultimately get a consumer to purchase. So I think if brands could approach partnerships through a more holistic lens and kind of evaluate it through the KPIs that they do other channels, it would allow for much more strategic partnership opportunities between content publishers and advertisers. And I think if we can start to embrace that model and kind of think differently as to what does success look like, I think they're like the sky's the limit in terms of how we could be partnering with brands beyond the big box retailers and kind of lean into those more kind of D2C or small business brands.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to what you're saying here, Neela. I think it's really interesting as far as like the differences in the conversations that you might actually have when you're talking to the affiliate team versus somebody else from like the paid search team or the branded side or the display. And they all have an interest in working with you, but in terms of their expectations and what they and how they want to work with you can differ so widely. And it's just such an interesting thing for me. And so I guess I would, as a brand, I might think about how to bring those pieces together. I in my past life, I saw some really creative solutions in which like certain teams were coming together to be able to put in their more brand focused dollars to get after this type of a publisher while leveraging the affiliate side to really enable the performance tracking side of it. And maybe they'd kind of fiddle around with the CPA itself to make it all work out in the back end. But I think, again, just having a more holistic mindset and just getting creative would be really helpful. And I think the only other thing that I would add in terms of challenges or misconceptions that we've come across at Wirecutter, I think sometimes even though we tell people about the editorial separation, sometimes people think that's actually just more of a suggestion. So I would just ask that the brands do bear in mind that when we say that there is a separation, that is actually very true. And I think, and one last thing that I would mention, because sometimes when we're talking to certain brands, I just had this conversation the other day with a major retailer and one of their teams, but they kept talking about, well, tell me about what a successful campaign looks like for you. And they kept talking about the campaign. And I had to pause and remind them, like, just to take a step back. For us, it's not about executing on a campaign so we can hit on this, like, this initiative for you, the brand. It all comes back to our reader and the experience that we're trying to drive for the reader. So, I think, in our day to day, especially in performance marketing, we can get very caught up in just the numbers, right? Like we live and breathe and die by our numbers. But at the end of the day, we're still trying to help a person make a product purchase decision and ultimately help enhance their lives through the things that we're recommending and that they're buying. And so I think just trying to bear in mind like the person who is the ultimately at the end of the work that we're putting out there.
A challenge that we're facing more and more of on our side is just kind of streamlining all the different conversations with the various different points of contact at the brand. So deciphering all the streams of, I guess, like communication. Sometimes we get information from the agencies versus the PR firms versus the affiliate networks versus directly versus, and so, sometimes larger brands or larger retailers, we have relationships with them on the media side as well as on the affiliate side. There's points of contact at certain retailers that are involved in both conversations, and there's different sets of information or goals or strategic focus areas being communicated here versus there. So there's a lot of kind of like, I guess, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And with more and more of these kind of hybrid types of deals, I think to streamline those conversations and understand like, who are the decision makers? What are you guys trying to get at? What's kind of the overall goal here, and get aligned initially, I think would make things a lot more efficient. Going back to what Neela was saying, when it comes to actually the smaller brands and retailers, I think it's also important to keep in mind that sometimes we need to train our users around certain types of behavior. And so you have to give things time, right? So I recall like 3 years ago, a couple of our beauty writers really liked linking out to Dermstore. Dermstore wasn't like a household name like Sephora or Ulta. But you know what? There are certain like really great products there that are carried and like highlighted really well over there. They had great customer service. Initially, it didn't do all that well. We didn't see high click-throughs on Dermstore links. After we started putting in more Dermstore links, like, fast forward 2-3 months after there's been exposure, more impressions of Dermstore links and more stories, more articles, before you know it, they were one of our top performing beauty skincare retailers. But that took time. It didn't get there after a couple links. And so just to give things like that, and the users kind of needed time to get used to, okay, what's this retailer I haven't heard of? Let me, browse around there, maybe buy one thing. If that went well, if that was a good shopping experience, it got to me on time, customer service was good, the mobile web experience, the checkout experience was good, then they're going to keep going back. And before you know it, the clicks and the conversions, EPC will all should start to rise. So just to kind of keep in mind, sometimes things take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I'll jump in with a misconception. I do think, having a section of the site that is part of a much bigger news organization, we often get a lot of retailers reaching out, asking us if we can add links or switch links in other content that we have absolutely zero control over. So Forbes Shopping is obviously a part of Forbes, but the rest of the editorial content that happens across Forbes.com is completely outside of our control. It's run from a completely different team. So, products and retailers are often featured organically in that content all the time. That is not something that we ever go in and change or have the control to do. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I don't have that much to add to what everyone said here. I think that, but I did want to address some questions I actually saw in the chat. Somebody asked, where do freelance writers fit in the mix, and do they earn a commission? And I can say on the ZMG side, we do hire freelancers from time to time. No, they do not receive a commission. And frankly, our editors and our writers they don't know anything about the commission that we generate on our sales. They don't know really anything about the revenue. They are isolated from all of those channels of communication. So no, there is no commission for a freelance writer. And then someone else asked about paid placement, and I think more like content paid placement. And as Neela articulated so well, there should be a different standard for the ROAS that you're getting on content. And is there, we are providing a brand experience and a way of, creating discoverability, which may down the road lead to a sale. But someone asked about no make goods. And I would say that's something that that partner should bring up with each publisher. I know on our side, we really, really try to do the right thing for the client. The last thing that I want is for us to have a paid placement that does nothing and take the money and run. That's not a great strategy. So we do work with our clients to try to figure out what's the best way here. If this didn't work, why didn't it work? You know, did we not put enough budget toward amplification? Do we need to add email? Was the deal, if there was a deal promoted, not resonating? Is the landing page on the merchant side maybe not working so well? What other factors were there? So I wanted to address a couple of those questions that came up in the chat because they seem like misconceptions.
Yeah, Jessica, thanks. That's great because I was going to dive right into the questions next. So you took care of a couple of them. I love it. So sort of on the same topic of the editorial team, if a brand is looking to get organic editorial coverage, do your editorial teams have a calendar or specific verticals that they're looking towards? And if so, are you able to share that out with clients, agencies, networks, or how would that typically work? What's the best practice?
I'll take that first. We do have editorial calendars, generally speaking, and verticals, especially on PC Mag and Mashable, and AskMen, that we are primarily focused on. On the ZMG side of things, essentially, we can even break a vertical. We can say, we're seeing this trend pop. Is there an interest? Then it's up to the editorial team to say, yes, all right, maybe we'll explore it and we'll let you know, or no, we're not interested at all, not related to our brand. Case is closed. And when it comes to products, we can also propose, would you review this? And then we're hands off. So we have a little, I would say, a touch of influence. The more efficient way, frankly, for a brand is, I think, how Leilani described it earlier. Have your PR team reach out to editorial. That is going to be the more direct way to approach how to get coverage and organic coverage on our sites.
So we operate a little bit differently in that I have a business team that kind of leads all things commerce, and we actually have affiliate managers who manage the affiliate relationships. We have brands who will occasionally reach out to our editorial team directly, so we definitely have that kind of line of communication. But my recommendation for our team would be reaching out to our affiliate management team or manager team and sharing. We kind of have like a two-way conversation in that prior to each quarter, we send out what we consider a rate card that also outlines what our editorial calendar will look like and what are the big tentpoles that we'll be leaning into. And I think that's a really great reference point for where there might be strong alignment to work with BuzzFeed. Because I always like to say, like, your product might not make sense in like April, but it could make a lot of sense in November. So I definitely wouldn't say that like a one-time no should be indicative of the fact that we could never work with a brand. But then beyond that, I'd say the more you can share big opportunities happening at like on your end, whether it be big sales or new product launches, or as someone said earlier, just like data around categories that are really taking off, that information that gets trickled down to our editorial team. And we have this really great process of like, we share insights. Those insights may or may not be picked up, but then we'll share with brands anytime there is coverage. So I definitely kind of work with that team, and most of our network and agency partners have a sense of who to reach out to on our end.
Neela, just to chime in quickly there, one thing that I do want to do since we're nearing time is just to bring up this slide so all the attendees can see our contact information, because we've gotten several questions from people who want to know, how do we get in touch with you? If we do have a brand, what are next steps? So just from a general overall partnerships perspective, if you're looking for affiliate marketing services and you're not currently doing that, if you have any questions about Acceleration Partners or this panel in general, please feel free to reach out to me directly. And then specific to the attendees on the call today, we have their email addresses up here. You'll also be getting the recording after the call. So everyone who attended today will get an email with the recording and also a copy of a white paper that AP put together a few months ago on different types of affiliate partnerships and how to best work with them, which would, I think, also be beneficial for the other attendees on this call. So With that said, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining today, specifically our panelists and all of our the attendees who joined and asked questions. And if you need anything or have any follow-ups, please feel free to reach out to us.